such a pleasure to have your film at the festival. It
Oh,
really resonates with what this festival stands for, and it's edgy and brave and powerful and like wow. I remember I was watching it, and it's such a wild ride that you can't stop watching. Well, let's just get into it right away. Can you tell us a bit more how this um, how the film was created from the idea stage to the screen? Like, what was
yeah.
your development process?
Wow. Yeah, it started about 2015, end of 2015, early 2016, and it actually was very different than what you just saw. It started as this kind of hard-boiled LA noir about some detective that gets hired to spy on cheating spouses or what have you, and he sees the same woman, someone that looks like the same woman, but twice, like two different people, like but they weren't twins at the time, and that's what how it started, and then I just stopped working on it because it didn't go anywhere. But I had that image of like, this character between the two female leads, and that image kind of stuck with me. And then like a year or so later, uh, my producer and we decided that we needed to do something much more contained for the budget that we had, which was very low.
Yeah.
And so I reconfigured it all to be like an apartment thriller, a psychological thriller in apartment, and still using that image, but kind of shifting it more towards, what leads to dissolving a relationship, and what can lead to these horrible acts of violence that we hear too often about, like, men who kill their wives and, dump them somewhere,
Hmm.
and as well as, the broader social, political implications. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
but what really grabs you is now it makes sense when you say budget restrictions. Of course, it's independent filmmaking,
sure.
and you can assume that you were in that situation. But the claustrophobic vibe of the entire film feels very integral to the story itself,
Mm-hmm.
and brings us to such a close proximity of the character. Like, he's haunted by his white page. He's haunted by the relationship he has with his wife, which is on the rocks. But then the new opportunity when her sister comes in opens up, in a way, his creativity, but also his madness as well.
Or is it creativity? He might think it is, but that's kind of the question. Yeah, it's I wanted to do something that kind of in a very small, intimate space talked about a lot of different things that has been on my mind the last 4 years, especially since Trump took office, and that's
Hmm.
it starts something.
Yeah, I mean, we can notice like the badge you have on your suit. That's a
Oh,
upside down American flag, right?
yeah, I wish I could be there in person to be talking with everyone, but my country's a bit sick at the moment, so I'm having to, do it here. But no, some I wanted it to, I wanted to make a film that could be seen only as maybe a relationship drama, and what sort of temptations and ideas and paranoias and fears that can lead to these horrible acts that we often hear of, as well as using it as like a microcosm for kind of what's going on in the U.S. right now,
So
but
do you
in a
think
very intimate way.
do you think that the main character in a way would represent the U.S. today? I mean, if I'm getting you correctly, and then everything that is a product of his imagination and the fantasies would be something coming from the depths of something aggressive and violent and
Yeah,
hidden in a way.
yeah. I mean, it's certainly there if anyone wanted to pick it up. I mean, I would hope that at the core it kind of speaks to maybe a universal um, problem and experience of delusional thinking or insecurity or inner life, or when you don't deal with things at face value, um, or when things get repressed, and that's certainly you kind of see it in the streets all over the U.S. right now. There's kind of like a giant awakening of um, a lot of unresolved conflict and tension, and much needed righteous anger, I would say. But the character of Raymond, I think, he can be viewed as someone that is very representative of the Trump era, but it could also be just viewed as how, the things to watch out for in our relationships and the darker, deeper parts of our psyches.
I'm glad we're bringing it down to a more personal level, talking about Raymond and the character. And can you tell us a bit about the casting process and working with the actors?
Yeah.
What it was like?
Yeah. So I cast Gareth Corzin first. He plays Raymond, and he was cast around 2016. And my brother, who was the producer and financier of the film, he found him actually, and he showed me a reel of his, and I thought he had a really interesting quality of that. On the outside, he could look very boyish with the almost sort of like Jack Nicholson kind of charm, but then he also can do a lot of things with his eyes, especially in very quiet moments, that can get incredibly unnerving. So he was cast just because he was perfect. And then I was looking for someone to play Adele and Dorothy, and that took about 3 years because I didn't. Well, long story short, I just never found anyone that was I was happy with, especially to play both. Because it's a pretty broad range between the two, and the two characters. I mean,
How did you find her?
Well,
I mean, how did you find?
Yeah, so I found Sasha on Instagram, but it wasn't in relation to the film at first. I just saw her, and I thought she was beautiful, and I was just hitting on her basically. And she and I started talking, and we found out that we had a lot in common. And she's actually, as you know, she's a non-actor, or maybe the audience doesn't know. She's a non-actor.
No, but I think we should highlight this because she is a non-actor, Sasha Grant, and
yes.
Her first acting gig was such a challenging role to play two people who are so distinct and distinctively different. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big challenge. How do. And she pulled it off. I mean, she's really, really good in the movie. How did you know that she was capable of doing that?
Well, she wasn't an actor. We weren't. I wasn't introduced to her as an actor. She was studying. She was at university in Florida. She's from Mandeville, Jamaica, and she went to university in Florida, and she was on her way to Kent University in England to get a law degree. But when she graduated, it was around the time that I met her, and she pursued her writing interests as a novelist out here in LA instead, much to the benefit of the film and myself, because we soon started dating soon after, and now she's my wife. And
what?
Yes,
really?
Yeah.
You're married.
We're married. Yeah. And all of that leading
Congrats,
up.
man.
Thank you. All of that leading up to, she was listening to me talk about this project that I just had never bothered to make called Black Jade. And she was giving me pointers, and I was even showing her audition tapes for people, and we would talk about who was right or who wasn't, whatever. And she and I just had a lot of interesting conversations about art and film and literature. Obviously, she's a novelist, so we had that, in common. And I just asked her out of the blue one day. I don't know why the idea came to me, but I just felt like, wait a minute, she's emotionally intelligent enough to be able to understand both these characters and to play them properly, I think. Um, and because Gareth had such training as a kid and she's a non-actor, that could be an interesting kind of conflict and combo between the two of them. So she was very much against it at first, but one night I think she got a little bored, and she sent me a video, just trying it. She ran a monologue. It was the monologue of Adele in the mirror, uh, and it was also the one by the pool. Um,
Yeah.
and I just thought it was it, and it was perfect, and I casted her then, but she took a little bit of convincing because she was like, "I've never done this. This is crazy," but we talked about it, and it worked. And I think it works on screen too. I think there's a palpable
Yeah.
chemistry between the two of them.
Yeah, you can really, I think it really works, and all of us here find the relationship very, very intense between them.
Yes.
Between all of them, it's more of a three-way, if you
Yeah,
will.
it kind of is. Yeah, yeah. No, there's
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, there's like a triangular shape to the film.
Yeah, and it's it's definitely worth talking to you about certain choices you made,
Mm.
which are so fascinating and unexpected. Like I have two in my head, um, which seem the most obviously impactful, and the first one would definitely be the marriage counseling scene. So how did you discover that? I'm assuming it happened in editing, and how did you? It's such a powerful scene that brings us so close to him and what he's going through, and teaches us so much about his character at the moment where it
Mm-hmm.
makes so much sense to learn more about his descent. So how did you make that?
How did we do that? That was near the end of the shoot. So Gareth had been with Raymond for the whole 2 weeks, um, and originally was supposed to be a one-off monologue um, for him, but he gave so many almost schizophrenic kind of multiple personalities in each one. Like his hair would change, his facial expression would change, and there was all these different. Um, it kind of felt like I was watching a different person each time, kind of do it, and that informed the edit
Mm.
because, in a way, the idea of like the camera is constantly trying to get into his head, like we're observing him, it's not necessarily. It was actually it improved it honestly, because if it had been a one-off, it might have been more of like kind of a confessional, but by kind of destructuring it a little bit and kind of constantly trying to push in, it provides kind of an analysis into kind of the fractured identity, and someone that wants to be great but um, is pretending, which is part of it's a Raymond's issue, one of his issues,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
but very genuine though from his point of view, of course. But I'm interested in the cinema camera being kind of more of an analysis and observation, and that's how it was found, just through the editing, and I
And
couldn't
you
I
and you
couldn't
and
let
you
go.
and you certainly achieved that, and it seems such like the best choice possible at the moment.
Yes, it was all
To
planned
tell
from the
us so.
beginning. It was all planned. Yeah, I storyboarded it
No,
and everything.
I guess the best things happen like that. I mean, spontaneously and through getting immersed in the material.
Yeah.
And the second one, I'm sure many of us noticed is the decision to turn and flip everything upside down after the murder. Like,
Yeah.
how did you come to that decision?
That was in the editing. I
Mm.
just kind of, I don't know. That was one of those things that it just felt right. Like literally one of probably the most horrific thing that can happen in human existence has happened, and just something as simple as turning the frame upside
It
down. And it
it
also,
clicked.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it worked. Hopefully, it worked for the audience, And also, I like the idea of, like, we're so used to seeing like the world one way, so even something as simple as that, where it's almost like, you know, gravity suspended, it's just part of the visual theme of the movie, of constantly putting like reality in question, you know. So that
Yeah,
yeah.
and in terms of turning things upside down and playing with expectations, music plays such an important part of the film, and you could notice muffled dialogue throughout the film,
Mm-hmm.
constantly avoiding silence, and the only time in the movie when silence does happen
Sure.
is actually when he kills her and suffocates her with a pillow. Uh, how important was silence and music and noise to you while creating the character in the movie?
Well, yeah, it's very important. I mean, to me, sound is in some ways. I don't want to say it's more important, but it's certainly sound is what physically is hitting you. So in some ways, it's more impactful than the picture. Um, so yeah, sound design is incredibly important, and a lot of the ideas for the sound design were kind of laid out early on. The idea that you're kind of constantly moving between the diegetic kind of, there's life happening in this building outside of the room you're in, which gives a sense of a little bit of voyeurism, but also the music specifically that you're hearing, what it is, um, gives commentary. And I wanted it to be essentially like sound design meets a soundtrack or a score, um, but not be scored. I wanted the music to kind
Yeah.
of be its own narrative component that was sort of interweaved into the fabric of this space. Because this space is just as important as the characters that fill it for me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and that it really works
yeah,
because it attacks all the senses from all angles, and it
yeah.
really immerses you in the film. So, I mean,
And the music,
congratulations for that.
yeah, thanks. And the music itself, it does. I don't know if it comes across very strongly, but the music that was chosen, it's anthropological recordings of early American immigrants that I found. And so,
Uh,
literally, the building and the music that you're hearing throughout the whole film is the music of American immigrants, which I think added another layer to the overall idea of the film, which was this is kind of like a nightmarish fever dream of America's past and present, and it's just kind of all intertwined.
it's like this force that is repressed and just boils underneath the surface until it explodes
Mm.
at some
Yeah,
point.
yeah, very,
You
very
know.
haunting. I was hoping that there'd be some kind of spiritual component with the voices of, you know, immigrants from Europe and South America, Mexico, freed slaves. You know, that's the soundtrack of the film, and then using the classical music to kind of specifically align with Raymond's descent, um, which is more, it's treated more like score because it's a subjective thing, and constantly weaving the two in and out between the subjective and the objective. Try to.
Okay, and since we have to wrap up soon,
Yes.
I only have time for a final question, and I think I think perhaps the best thing to leave the audience with is to ask you what did you want them to feel watching the movie? What were you hoping that you could achieve? Oh, it's a tough one, huh? Or maybe
Hmm.
we can talk about other scenes.
No, 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 no. I mean, that's not. No, no. That's a good question. Hmm. I guess to question their reality
Yeah.
and the things that we dream about, think about, question the relationship we have with the people we love, people that are different from us, and really kind of, yeah, just questioning one's reality, I guess, would be the simplest way to put it. And be aware of when
Well,
you put your head in the sand and you, you know, you ignore certain truths, what that can lead to. You know.
Well, it's really been a pleasure talking to you, and we're happy to have the opportunity to share the movie and share the message of challenging and questioning reality, taking our heads out of the sand, and looking at life with open eyes and with beautiful cinema. So thanks a lot for talking to us and bringing us your film to Oldenburg.
Thank you. I'm happy
It's been a
to be
pleasure,
there.
man.
Yes. No, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.